as I was listening to our song and our music ministry and thinking about this graduation and all the people it took to organize. Even putting a little simple ceremony together takes effort, and it takes forethought, and it takes time, and it takes investment. And we have our volunteers cooking lunch. We have the Chet Verikoff family cooking today, and we have so many volunteers who cook throughout the year. And I'm really just humbled by, in some ways, how little Mike and I do to make such a beautiful service and environment, and how much everybody else contributes, even on days when it's below zero outside. It takes a commitment. It really takes intention to make things happen. So I'm so grateful for all of you. Thank you so much for coming today. I looked at this picture and I was a little bit tempted to turn it into some kind of a tropical, steamy rainforest because it just felt so cold this morning, but here we are. Today I'd like to talk about our attitude in the new year. I don't know about you. For myself, I feel like the new year is a process. I never get really excited about New Year's Eve, and then New Year's, I'm like, woohoo, it's a new year. I feel like it takes me at least a week into the new year to feel like I'm kind of ready for the new year. And then it takes me another week or two to kind of process that this is 2024, and what am I really doing? So I hope you don't mind me dragging out the New Year's messages for a couple weeks. But, when we were growing up, we used to celebrate one of our major church holidays on New Year's, and we called it God's Day. And now we celebrate God's Day on the Lunar New Year. But on every God's Day, our faith founders would make a motto for the year, a proclamation, or this is the year of building God's home on earth, or this is the year of establishing true love in our families, or something like that. And I remember as a child, these things kind of just going over my head most of the time. And well, I don't know, I'm just me, and I'm just going to keep doing what I do. And as a kid, actually, we don't realize that children grow and learn so quickly, and actually so much is happening in the course of a year. I think, in the middle of it, we're kind of oblivious to it. And I was like, oh, well, it's just a year, another year. And then as I got older, I often felt a little bit of apathy towards the New Year mottos. I felt like these are so big, they seem so grand, and I'm just living my life here on earth. And what kind of a difference does a motto make in the grand scheme of things? But since then, and I guess it's just hopefully something that comes with maturity and getting older, actually, I really am starting to feel that every year actually is so important and is so valuable. And in some ways, a year passes almost in the blink of an eye, but in some ways, there's so much we can accomplish, or we can begin, seeds we can plant in a year that makes a huge difference for the rest of our life. So I think I've softened my stance towards mottos and proclamations. And also, I find that the more that I do, the more effort I really put into my goals and into my relationships, the more I believe it. The more I believe that, yeah, something miraculous can actually happen in the course of a year. Not only, yes, my decisions and my choices, or lack of them, they build our reality. And they build on each other. So a 1 year of investment can be a good start, but another year of investment on top of that creates a solid foundation. And another year on top of that, you start to see the fruits of it. But it doesn't just apply to me. Something that I'm feeling more and more is that the choices that I make or lack thereof actually make a really big difference to the people connected to my life as well, and to their futures as well. When the times when I was really just thinking about myself, just trying to take care of myself or do things that I want, then words about the world or about changing the world felt very far away from me. It's easy for them to feel cliche or fake. But I find that the more that I kind of invest myself in that direction, the more those words have meaning to me. So what I realized from this, kind of reflecting on my life, how my attitude has changed towards New Year, towards New Year's resolutions, towards mottos, I realized that it's not so much about what the motto is for the year or even what happens during the year. It's actually my attitude or my perspective on it that makes a difference. It colors the way I receive what God is trying to give me. If I have a kind of jaded or blasé attitude, then I almost want to reject the words that God is trying to give me. But if I'm already in a mode where I am investing or I'm giving or I really want to make a difference, then God's words actually feed me and give me more energy. So what is God trying to give us this year? I find it interesting. I think that almost all of us want good things for the year, right? I want to be more healthy. I want to have better relationships with my family and my loved ones and my coworkers, my classmates. I want to make more money. I want to create a more beautiful environment that I live in. And all of those things, if we don't already have them, then we could say we want growth. We want growth in these areas. Whatever our goal is, I think we could, and if we put it in a different way, we could say, I want growth in this area. But growth and change usually requires some challenge. Very rarely do we just smoothly and naturally grow into something new that we want, right? Almost always, growth means that we're at a certain level and we're going the way that we're going, and then there's an obstacle or there's something we stumble over or there's something in our way, and in order to get over it, we have to change something in ourselves. We have to grow something in ourselves to be able to get over it and keep going. So maybe we don't think of it this way, but when we declare our goals to God, we declare our goals for the year, inevitably, we're probably asking God to challenge us in some way or another. But do we approach God's challenges or God's a gift in a way with the same kind of attitude that we proclaim our goals with, right? I think it's easy to be like, of course, I want to have a more loving relationship with my children, and then when our child refuses to do what we ask, it's easy to be like, well, that's not what I want. I want them to do the things that I say, and that would be a better relationship with my child. But what having a better relationship with a child might look like is when they don't do the thing that you say, we have to pause. We have to grow our heart and maybe see from their perspective or find a better way to give education or love or direction in a way that they can receive it, you know? And that's where actually a closer, more beautiful relationship comes from. I was reflecting on 2019, the year before. in the before COVID. And we in our God's Day celebration, in our Lunar New Year, we usually have a really big, beautiful celebration as a community. We have games, we have food. And one thing that we also do is we have testimonies from people in the community, and we share our testimonies. And I actually shared a testimony, and I remember very clearly saying, like, I feel so much of God's love in my relationships this year. Like, I really feel like I'm standing at the top of a mountain and I can like see everything around me. And I know it probably won't last, but I do want to acknowledge that this is what I am experiencing today. This is what I'm experiencing this year. And I remember that year was so much beauty in the relationships of my children. Annalise was just getting old enough where she could really talk and communicate, and I could see her brothers taking care of her, and her learning how to play with her big sister taking care of her, and them playing really well. And my heart was just melting every time. And Mike and I had a good year, and I was just like, this is it. This is like what it's supposed to feel like. Kingdom of heaven in my family. And I knew, I already know well enough to know that that's not going to last like forever, and that things change and you have to readjust and grow. And it happened, and then 2020 hit, and then many things. But I also have to recognize that part of the reason why that was such a beautiful year, a beautiful experience, was actually because of all the challenges that we had gone through before that. I remember the twins at one point, at times, would be so incredibly stubborn, and we could not, change their mind about something or make them do something. And I remember one night, I don't even remember what the argument was about, but we were in Chick-fil-A. We were trying to have like a family night, and they got really upset about something. And when they get upset, like, their faces turn blotchy, and they shudder, and it's like really, really heart-wrenching. And they couldn't move. And we were I'm like, well, let's just go home, let's just go, and we're trying to get them out to the car, and they couldn't move. And I remember we ended up just sitting in the lobby of the Chick-fil-A for like 15 minutes with them while they went through these incredible emotions. And people would walk by like, oh my God, should I call somebody or something, Like, it's okay. But there were times when we just didn't know what to do. We couldn't fix something for them. We just had to sit with them and let them go through their emotions. And then they knew that we were there for them in those difficult times. But there was so many times like that of us trying to figure out how do we do this as a family? How do we do these relationships? How do we make it work? And it was those kind of experiences that over time, we were able to find that beautiful balance as a family in 2019. And of course, we're not the same people we were in 2019. Our children have all grown older. We've changed, and so we've gone through another process of like refiguring out who we are with each other and how to love teenage children and how for them to figure out how to be teenagers and how to love and take care of their younger siblings when they're not so cute and tiny and chubby anymore. There's a different kind of relationship. So it's humbling and a good reminder that sometimes we are in a valley, and it's not bad. And sometimes we are on a peak, and that's not the be-all, end-all either. Both of them have value. And we also can't enjoy the moments of the peaks, which we all want when we set our New Year's resolutions, without going through the valleys to get to them. And I have a quote to share from our founder, which you might have heard before, but I feel has a lot of merit. How to digest and conquer your environment is the question. Don't ever try to escape from life, but feel challenged and persevere on your way. On an uneven road, ups and downs are to be expected. But where there are peaks, there are valleys at another time. When you find yourself in a dungeon, you must expect that in the next moment, God will bless you with the most grace. But what I find interesting about this quote is not just for all of us, there will be an uneven road. There's always ups and downs. There's always the valleys and the peaks. But what I like about this quote is about what kind of attitude do we have towards it? Being ready to digest and conquer the things that come at us. Instead of feeling like persecuted by life or overwhelmed by life or like the victim of life, instead having an attitude, well, this is a challenge. God has given me an opportunity to grow. And also, I think sometimes that when we feel like we're in a dungeon, it's really easy to feel so sorry for ourselves or to look at somebody else and like, man, if I could just be in their shoes and not have to be where I'm at right now, it would be better. But even in a difficult moment, actually having the attitude and expecting God has got something good waiting for me, so I won't give up. I think that this is truth. This is truth. God is ready to bless us with much grace. However, there are times when we get so stuck in where we're at or so resentful about what's happening to us that we can't receive the grace that God is giving us. And then we don't believe words like this. Well, I was in a really difficult time and I didn't feel God's love. And I was in it for a really long time. The blessing should have come. Well, maybe we were so stuck in our own mind or so busy looking down that we couldn't see what God was trying to do for us. I gave a message around this time last year about planting flowers, and it comes from this little meme which has been circulating for probably years. As you can see, it's been chopped. I think it says 20, that's a 20 teen, there's a teen there, and they just keep changing the number on it, but that's okay. The meme says, "Aren't you terrified of what 2024 could be like? Everything is so messed up." Well, I think it will bring flowers. Yeah? Why? Because I'm planting flowers. And basically the gist of it is, yeah, I don't know what all is going to happen this year. We really don't know. In 2020, who could have guessed what would have come? Right? We don't know. But whatever does come, I can know that there will be goodness this year. There will be beautiful things that come out of this year, whatever happens. Why? Because I will be planting seeds of goodness. If I am giving goodness out, if I am investing into important relationships, if I am giving love, inevitably that will develop into goodness and love in the world. Maybe not every single one will show up this year, but inevitably, if we're planting seeds of goodness, whatever else happens, there will be goodness that comes out of this year. So I guess then the question is, well, what kind of seeds or what kind of flowers should I plant? We are beings of free will, and we're all so unique. We have different skills, we have different interests. What do we want to invest in? I'm sure each of you has your own ideas, but I could say for sure that there are two things that we can never go wrong planting. And that each and every single one of us is capable of planting, no matter how old you are, no matter what your profession is. And these two types of seeds or flowers that we should be planting, no matter what, is loving and investing into people and loving and investing into our relationship with God. This is a quote from Mark. One of the teachers of the law came and heard them debating, Jesus talking in the temple. Noticing that Jesus had given them a good answer, he asked them, well, of all the commandments, which is the most important? The most important one, answered Jesus, is this. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind and with all your strength. And the second is this. Love your neighbor as yourself. There is no commandment greater than these. These two things, these two investments, will always result in rich dividends. And they cannot fail to bring good results. Whatever else might happen, right? I think about the people that I've gotten to know over the years, whether here and in the community or throughout my life. And I wish that I was more proactive in keeping in touch with people and sending people love on their birthdays. I feel like I fall short many times. But for sure, when I do remember, when I do take that extra effort to let people know I'm thinking about them, I love them. And if they're going through a tough time, that I am with them in heart. Those relationships are like treasures in my life. Some of you might know Crescentia DeGodi. She was a pastor in New Jersey for a long time, and she's stepped down now, but she's always taking care of families. She's always helping with Women's Federation. Her heart is so invested into taking care of people. She's like the embodiment of taking care of othersness. And recently she was diagnosed with a stage 4 brain cancer. And it's very challenging. But at the same time, like, I see how all these seeds, and I've known her since she was like 17 or 18. And even then, she was always just this like bubble of positivity and always encouraging other people. And I see how the last at least 20 years of doing that, right? 20 years of always investing into others, always giving love to others, is like coming back in a flood for her. There's so many people sending her love, sending her money, sending her medical care, medical advice. Like, she's just being completely overwhelmed with love. She's updated, and she's like, I can't be sad. I can't even worry because I feel so loved. And we're all just like, well, of course, Crescentia. This is just what you've been doing for everybody else your whole life, you know? So, not that we should plan for ourselves to be in a situation where we need that, right? But instead think, what can I do this year that maybe I didn't do yet? How can I up my loving? How can I up my giving? Even if it's not grand, maybe it's not creating an organization to help the homeless, maybe it's not, you know, saying happy birthday to everybody on time on Facebook, but maybe it's just picking 2 or 3 people. Like, I think these people really need God's love. And I want to find a way this year to give it to them. That's planting seeds that will always result in goodness. And then the other one, loving and investing into our relationship with God. Loving the Lord our God with all our heart and all our soul and all our might and all our strength. This one, in some ways it's easier because we don't actually have to deal with a person. Sometimes people are harder to deal with and those relationships. So I think for some people it's actually easier to give love to God or receive God's love or receive God's guidance. But in some ways it's harder because it's not a physical being. I can't give God a birthday, wrap up a birthday present and show God love that way. So how do we love and invest into God, into my relationship with God? Well, I would argue that one way of doing that is by loving others, because God, that is God, right? Is loving others. But also, sometimes we can love others without God. We can kind of love people superficially, or we can say, hi, how are you doing? And spend time talking to somebody, but not actually really see them from God's viewpoint. Not actually really try to give them God's love. So I think the biggest test is, how do we love others with God's love? But also we can't forget that our relationship with God is incredibly personal. I was reading an article on Family Fed recently, what is your God language? We talk about love languages, right? The love languages of quality time and physical touch and words of affirmation and acts of service. But this article was saying that actually each of us has a God language and a way that we experience God most. And when we're doing this, we actually feel closest to God. And it's different for different people. Some people feel closest to God when they're sitting in the chapel like this, and they're listening to God's words. This is definitely where I need to be right now, and I am receiving God's love. And some people are like, well, I'm here, but I'd really rather be out on the mountain hiking or skiing, and not just because it's fun, but because actually I feel so close to God when I'm in nature. Some people's God language is nature. Some people's God language is in community and in the relationships. For some people, it's in the traditions, doing things like reading God's word in the morning and doing their prayer, or going to the prayer room and celebrating the holidays in a very specific way, and doing those things helps them to feel connected to God. Some people's God language is in action. It's in social justice, or in trying to help the poor and the widows, and a lot of the things that Jesus said, I want to do those things. And that's how I feel closest to God. But the point of this article was that nobody could really tell you how to do it. And oftentimes when we listen to other people share how they feel close to God, we kind of want to do that too, but it doesn't necessarily work for us. And the point of the article was that to find your God language, we actually just have to be very vulnerable to God. We have to let go of what we think we should look like in front of our congregation, in front of my pastor, even in front of God. When I'm completely honest, this is me, God. This is what I have to offer. And I don't have this to offer, even if I want to. That and our vulnerability to God is actually the only thing that can bring each one of us specifically in our own unique way to God. Nobody else can take us there, And we can't get there by copying other people's ways. But when we are 100% ourselves, 100% humble, vulnerable, then God can meet us where we're at, and God can show us. It's like it kind of gets rid of all the stuff between us and God. And God can be like, this is your next step. So as we wrap up the service and continue on into our year, I know we're already halfway through January, and I hope that whatever New Year's resolutions you've made, you haven't already thrown them out the window. I know that it's become popular these days. There's a certain day, I forget what it is, like January 3rd. It's like throw your resolutions out the window day or something. Hopefully nobody's there yet. But I hope that wherever you're at and whatever you were hoping for this year, whatever your goals were, or just whatever your heart desires this year, that for one, we connect it to loving others and loving God. If we're making effort in those two areas, I guarantee there will be dividends. Those are investments we can never go wrong in. And on top of that, I hope for you that when the challenges arise on the path towards those goals, that we can all have an attitude of, why is this happening to me? That's not what I wanted. That's not what my goal was. But instead, to see it as a challenge or an opportunity for us to grow the part in ourselves that is actually able to attain those goals, right? So having the attitude, the perspective of what God is trying to work in our life, expecting that, yes, there will be valleys this year, but inevitably there are peaks, and I'm just going to keep going until I get there. And that in whatever I'm doing, I want to be giving love to others. I want to be investing in loving my relationship with God. Please join me in prayer. Heavenly Parent, thank you so much for this day. Grateful for all of us who could brave the elements and be here. And despite the cold outside, I feel the warmth of your love and of our fellowship. Please be with each person as we go out into this week and as we continue to take the next step into 2024. We really don't know what this year will hold for us, what the year holds for the world. And part of us just has to accept that there will be challenges and there will be valleys. But whatever comes, we do have control over a few things, and that is the seeds that we plant, Heavenly Parent. So I pray that we can be intentional in loving others and in loving you, and in loving you through loving others, and in knowing that you will be guiding our steps, knowing that you are holding us in your heart and in your arms, and that you want to give blessings to each one of us. And though sometimes the blessings come in disguise, so I pray we can have the wisdom to see it and the fortitude to not give up, Heavenly Parent. We offer this message, this service to you, and I pray this in my name, Michael Antonia Hendrick, of Blessed Angel Family. Amen and adieu. Thank you.